these 6-mana haymakers, massive Hydro Crisis, Nissa Who Shakes the World, and we'll see some of that in Ryosuke Nishiura's hand here to start. Turn 4, Nissa Who Shakes the World rolled up. Also Nissa Who Shakes the World in Autumn's deck, just one copy there.
Yeah, and this is something that we saw in Burchett's iteration of the Simic Nexus deck when that was in Standard, where it sort of functioned as just a 5th virtual copy of Wilderness Reclamation.
And the game plan with that can be slightly different. You know, it's a card that can win the game by itself, whereas Reclamation requires its own payoff. But this Reclamation deck is so flexible that it can accommodate this card with different play patterns sometimes.
And now we're at a spot where Autumn needs another land. If Ryosuke were to end up doing something like Growth Spiral here, we'd likely just see Expansion copying it.
Yeah, or how about Expansion on Cultivate on the following turn?
Oh, that'd be a huge pickup for Autumn.
That'll kill LSU if you're having mana problems. But we've seen these Reclamation decks play these incredibly long games where they end up with 10, 12, 15 lands on the battlefield. We haven't often seen them get mana screwed, but you know it's a rarity, but when it happens, it can be devastating. Although, as we said, yeah, here we go. Expansion on Cultivate. Who's the round deck now, Nishiura?
Look, let's look at it this way. If it's good enough for the opponent to cast and put in their deck, it must be good to resolve. And this is going to pave the way for Autumn to have Nissa into roll-up on a breeding pool with Aether Gust or Negate up. This may just be the thing that puts the game away.
Burchett could not have asked for a better turn 3 than the opponent's Cultivate there.
What a sentence. And this is a spot where Nissa being able to apply pressure actually makes it a little bit better than Wilderness Reclamation. This is one of the things that we've seen Burchett do time and time again with these Temur Reclamation strategies, is they just prioritize pressure so frequently.
And that old sequence of Nissa, Animate Breeding Pool, attack, and then you get to hold up 2-mana interaction like Aether Gust, like Negate. That has been such a terrifying line to play against for over a year now, since Nissa Who Shakes the World came into the Standard format. And we're seeing that play out again right here, right now.
How do you feel about tapping 3 lands for a Commence the Endgame?
I'm all about it. That seems like a
pretty
fair
good divination, I think.
And yeah, Nishiura will go for his own Nissa, and that will get answered by either one of these 2-mana counterspells there.
I imagine Aether Gust is the line largely on the back of the fact that Burchett is very excited if Nishiura ends up spending their next turn on just recasting this Nissa.
Absolutely. You're so happy to see this play that you're going to encourage Nishiura to repeat it on the following turn. And yeah, now Burchett gets to attack for 6, hold up Commence the Endgame, and Negate, and Mystical Dispute.
Oh no, you
even cast Wilderness Reclamation. Oh wow.
Oh my.
If you have Nissa and Wilderness Reclamation and a board full of forests, how much mana exactly is that, Emma?
I don't actually think Devoted Druid and Vizier of Remedies go that high, if we're being honest.
Yeah, we get an integer overflow here live on the SCG Tour.
The limit does not exist to what Autumn can do with all of this.
And there is that Nissa right back on top for Nishiura. I am also getting word that Ari Lax is our feature match this round, and historically Ari has been cursed in feature matches on these broadcasts, so we'll see if he can shake that off and continue his streak in this tournament.
Oh yeah, at this point, back has got to be against the wall for Lax, really looking to get that top 8 to make sure that he gets to come back, play tomorrow for his cut of $20,000.
And there's Hydro Crisis. Okay, you can draw some cards, you can have, what is that, a 4/4? That's fine. But at this point, may as well cast a Mystical Dispute on it, and yeah, Nishiura knows that he's done. Moving here to sideboarding.
And that game was just a clinic on why Nissa Who Shakes the World was able to carry Aaron Diaz to win the second week of the SCG Tour Online Championship qualifiers. Burchett actually worked with Diaz this week going into the event, and you can see their fingerprints all over the deck list.
And Diaz, in their winning list, had 4 copies of Nissa, only 3 copies of Reclamation. That was a Temur Nissa deck, if anything. But we see the balance redressed just a little bit here. And then for Nishiura, who had a mostly mono Simic main deck, you see Thoughtless Torch, that marquee card that pushes you towards Sultai come into the deck. That's going to be a focus of their game plan here, post-sideboard against Autumn.
And we see that one Narcissus Reversal snapped into the deck for Burchett, hoping they can find it in time to use it on one of those big impactful spells like Thought Distortion.
Also, Nightpack Ambusher, which has been so good at playing that flash game, also good at getting underneath Thought Distortion or surviving it if it's languishing in your hand for the time being.
Mm-hmm.
Nishiura has submitted here. Burchett making the last few decisions on their end. Looks like Shark Typhoon being de-emphasized here.
Most of what they're trying to do is just trying to figure out what cards are actually going to play in the face of what cards that Nishiura has registered this weekend. And it sounds a little bit self-explanatory, but you don't want to play a bunch of cards that play poorly against Casualties of War. You don't want to use a bunch of things that line up against cards that Nishiura has in their sideboard as well.
And we saw the same move last round of shaving a copy of Arct on the same basis that when your entire deck is full of heavy hitters, your deck is less polarized. There are less cards which you absolutely do want to draw, absolutely don't want to draw. You'd rather just have the cards themselves in your deck available to you.
Right. Most of those turns we saw Autumn effectively using all of their mana, so having one extra mana tacked onto a turn is a very real drawback.
And here we see a quick mulligan for Nishiura into a hand with Cultivate and Thought Distortion on the play. That's how we draw it up.
Well, they really want to find a little bit more here. This is only a turn 5 Thought Distortion.
They would love to have Growth Spiral, not another 6-drop, you understand. That is not what we requested there. But yeah, Nishiura on the play, 10-5 Thought Distortion can still do some good work, but not much left in the tank. And also, we do need this Cultivate to resolve to do that in a timely fashion, which, are we going to see Narcissus Reversal on Cultivate here? Or, I guess, Aether Gust too.
I would expect the Aether Gust just to make sure that gets off. You don't really want to have an Aether Gust rotting in your hand when Thought Distortion inevitably comes down. Narcissus Reversal has bigger, better things to tend to.
And here we get to punish this Cultivate again with a Mystical Dispute if we want. Or we can even, we can't Growth Spiral and Dispute, but we could Growth Spiral and then set up for a Narcissus Reversal, kind of playing into the Thought Distortion, letting Nishiura ramp out to that, and then countering it when it appears.
A lot of it comes down to how valuable you think Mystical Dispute is going to be, and if Burchett's plan is to just try and actually grind out Nishiura, you want to actually reduce the power of the top of Nishiura's library, and part of that is going to be just reducing the raw quantity of resources they have available.
Yeah, there's no reason necessarily to get fancy and let them have a card which, if it's not Thought Distortion, if they're following up with some other haymaker that's maybe more tough to answer, you don't want to play into that sequence, so... Oh, is this... Oh, Autumn fired off the Narcissus Reversal on the Cultivate. Interesting.
Okay, so this is them just saying, let's go ahead, get all these spells out of the hand now, and do it a bit more naturally.
And for Autumn, only one copy of Narcissus Reversal, so Nishiura does not have to live in fear of that being what his Thought Distortion is met with when that finally comes down.
And in a lot of ways, the onus is on Burchett now to find something to do before that Thought Distortion just KOs their hand.
Yeah, Mystical Dispute is going to trade with the Cultivate, so that Ugin the Spirit Dragon in Nishiura's hand still quite a way off.
And this is that situation we were talking about before, about reducing the power of the top of Nishiura's library. Now, Nishiura needs to invest a draw step in a land just to turn on the spells in their hand.
And using that Mystical Dispute there, and we see the fourth copy drawn for Burchett. The first one makes each successive Mystical Dispute better by limiting Nishiura's resources. On the other hand, if Nishiura finds a sick land here, and instead they just find their own copy of Mystical Dispute, which are far less effective against Autumn's ramping capability, which has outgunned Nishiura's here.
Getting in a ramp fight with a deck that has ramp in its name has got to be a scary prospect. Burchett is desperately digging for something to do with their mana.
And there's Uro, which Autumn can cast a front side here, and just Hydroid Crisis there for Nishiura. Not what he needs.
And 3 on Hydroid Crisis is the worst feeling number, because you're so close to getting 2 cards out of it.
And this Uro, if this can escape now, then that means Thought Distortion very likely to be good enough, even if it snipes the rest of Burchett's hand.
And if this Uro can find another untapped land, that could even spell being able to negate something like a Casualties of War, or just fighting over the card with this Mystical Dispute.
So here we go. Uro breaking its change once more, Add that one to the tally. And Nishiura will dispute, and now Autumn will be very happy to use one of their many, many disputes left over. But it's not even going to be effective here.
Yeah, just tapping 3 of Nishiura's lands isn't going to do it.
Oh, and there is a safe land, but it comes into play tapped for Nishiura.
That is what we in the business refer to as a beat.
Now imagine if that had been untapped, and now Nishiura can cast Thought Distortion, eat not just Autumn's hand, but also their graveyard. I mean, that Uro can't escape again on the comeback.
And huge sign of patience from Nishiura, not casting this Hydroid Crisis, despite knowing that there are all these 6s and an Ugin in hand.
Here's Growth Spiral, and there's Wilderness Reclamation.
Well...
So now we're in the position where, even if Thought Distortion resolves, any top-decked Expansion Explosion or really any payoff can just win the game for Autumn instantaneously.
Saying any of those is a little rough because this Casualties will be able to mop up this Wilderness Reclamation if Burchett doesn't find it now. They need to find something off the top of their library as soon as possible.
And Aethergust is kind of it, I suppose.
That's a turn.
It is. And I wonder if Nishiura is even going to lead on the Casualties here.
Yeah, there's a non-zero chance you just want to play something like Hydroid Crisis to kind of start applying pressure while Burchett's seemingly out of gas.
You maybe draw into another land to cast a Ugin the Spirit Dragon on the following turn.
Ooh.
And there it is. So yeah, Ugin on the bench, ready to come onto the battlefield. And so this is a big draw for Autumn. Negate, well, okay, that helps if that's what we're doing.
Yeah, it's going to come down to if Nishiura wants to just lead on this Thought Distortion again, or go ahead and Casualties of War the Wilderness Reclamation.
There's 2 Ugins ready to help Nishiura force through that negate.
Alright, Crisis coming across. Ugin getting cast.
Ugin 1 gets negated.
Negate 1.
And now... I feel like we've said for the past 4 turns, this is a big turn for Autumn Burchett. Last Zone can take down the Hydroid Crisis, alleviate some of that pressure. And we are getting close to Uro being able to escape again.
Yeah, that's why we see Autumn just snapping off any spells that they can cast at this point.
And there it is. I'm feeling a real sense of deja vu here, Emma.
Oh,
and there's Expansion Explosion.
Oh my gosh.
This was just turned out perfectly for Burchett. We thought that Thought Distortion was going to do some good work and maybe put Nishiura back in the driver's seat, but here we are.
Well, now there's this scary prospect of playing around Ugin versus Thought Distortion versus Casualties of War. It just sort of comes down to Autumn needing to pick which spell they want to play around because they can't play around all of those cards.
I think, though, if we fire off a big explosion, which by my count is for 8, then I don't know if we care too much if we get Casualties or even Ugin. You know, we're going to have some good follow-ups to that.
But what if you get Thought Distortioned?
Now, that's the other side of that equation. Yeah, that does leave the Uro in play, so that can help you recover. But that is... Yeah, it turns out Nishiura has all 3 of those right now.
All right, it looks like it's time for an explosion.
This could be Explosion holding up Gust, or like if you get to draw it into a negate or a dispute, you can cast that too.
Okay, so it isn't the high score Expansion Explosion we've come to expect. It's just 4 cards, but that does leave the mana available for a Night Pack Ambusher to come down.
And here's Ugin the Spirit Dragon. So that can mop up what's in play, but then Night Pack Ambusher can dodge that, come down at the end of the turn and finish off the Ugin.
That's not that bad of an exchange.
No, I think Autumn is fine with that. And this is why Ugin, which was hailed as maybe the most impactful card from Core Set 2021, has failed to really make such an impact because it's just not what you're looking for against this Reclamation deck. You know, it's hard to resolve. And then even if you do get to minus it, you don't necessarily mop up everything.
Let me ask you something. How do you feel about Aethergust on your own Reclamation?
I don't hate that. Yeah, we could just fire off a gigantic explosion after that. Although Autumn may feel that the most likely follow-up to this Ugin is maybe a Casualties of War or some other big green threat, and having the Aethergust as a virtual time walk against that is where they want to be.
Yeah, just having something to do is going to be a little bit better. It's also just you're trying to accrue some sort of value off your Night Pack Ambusher.
And yeah, look at this. We can go for Nissa. If that resolved, Nishiura could follow up with Casualties of War on the same turn, but Aethergust is going to buy a crucial turn, a crucial attack step here for Autumn. And actually, so that...
This explosion is getting close to lethal. If Autumn can rip another copy of Expansion Explosion, it just is lethal. But as it stands, they'll be able to do it for 6 on their turn, if they so choose, which would just put Nishiura down to 3.
And yeah, at that point, who cares if your hand gets Thought Distortion, right? Just another land for Burchett. And ticking up Blast Zone. The one opt left in the deck. Or one of the opts, excuse me.
All right, and this is a precarious position where Nishiura now needs to also have a source of life gain to not just die next turn.
So that's 9, and then... Yeah, we are counting to 9 plus 4 remarkably quickly. And even the Casualties, that only deals with one of the attackers, so Nishiura would need another thing that sweeps the board entirely, like that third copy of Ugin the Spirit Dragon.
This is a situation where, depending on what Burchett's read is, if this Nissa comes down, the explosion just answers it cleanly.
And this could be the window. Only Mystical Dispute being represented by Nishiura.
And Autumn just says, nope, fires it off, 6 to the dome, 6 to the hand.
Alright, I have 3 lethal attackers, more mana than your Ram deck could ever dream of, and a full hand of cards. What have you got, Nishiura? Nishiura has a Fable Passage, and can open this turn with a Nissa, but that can't translate into anything good enough.
Well, so we could see Nissa into Casualties of War on the Wolf and Blast Zone, or excuse me, on Nightpack Ambusher specifically in a Blast Zone, which shrink the Wolves to 2/2s, then untap a land with Nissa to have a blocker. We know that's not good enough because of the Nightpack Ambusher in Burchett's hand, but there are paths forward if you're on Nishiura's seat right now.
And they'll certainly keep playing. They'll play towards those outs. Two modes on that Casualties of War. And this will untap a land, potentially putting Nishiura at 1 life after this attack, but we know that Autumn has several ways to get the job done here. And we'll see Aethergust on the Nissa. And this is smart, taking Nishiura off some kind of 2-mana interaction, and now Nightpack Ambusher, making both of those wolves lethal attackers.
Love a good Lord for lethal.
And Nishiura packs it in. So Autumn Burchett moving to 6-0 at this tournament. We can now say a lock for top 8. So we will see them putting up a second top 8 on